All right, good evening, everybody. If you're able to rise, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we open the first hearing and privilege of the floor, as you can tell, we were in our meeting for quite a while. The Board of Education values the public portion and segment of our meetings every week or every other week. We listen to what's being said, we take notes, and we follow up when a member or a matter is risen in front of us that we can comment in public. However, if a member of the public is commenting about a specific person, students, or individuals, we will not respond to those comments, excuse me, generally because of confidentiality reasons and limitations imposed upon us under law. We also encourage community members to please follow a chain of communication when seeking an answer or resolution to any issue that is addressed by first speaking in public. For instance, if there's a problem in a classroom, we ask that you reach out to the teacher, if not the department head, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, then ultimately Superintendent Swartz. We are currently in the process, as of this evening, creating a document for our website called the Chain of Communication. We hear what you are saying. We are working on addressing the issues that are brought up to us every other week. That's why we are trying to create such a documentation. So at this time, we will open up the first hearing and privilege of the floor. We just remind everybody, please adhere to our 5-minute policy. Please state your name and your address. The podium is open.
My name is Kevin Sullivan. I live at 801 Sanders Ave. I'm a parent of a 7th grader and a 9th grader. Just a little bit of background. I grew up in the Albany City School District. Played on a multitude of school and rec sports teams. My youth sports coaching background started in Albany with Little League, fall baseball, rec soccer. My family came to Scotia-Glenville 7 years ago. Since moving here, I've coached in our Little League and fall baseball programs, baseball camps in Schenectady, rec basketball at the high school, summer girls basketball camp, summer workouts for the school girls basketball team, and most recently the modified girls basketball coach this past season. Tonight I will speak about that experience as a coach in our school district. As a parent, I attended Meet the Coaches Night for the middle school winter sports season November 29th last year. While there, I was shocked to learn that there was only one coach for the 2 girls modified basketball teams. For those not familiar, we have separate 7th and 8th grade girls basketball teams. I couldn't fathom how this happened, but I thought I could help the kids have a better experience if I got involved. I inquired with the district's athletic director about the vacancy and immediately began the process of applying for the position. While completing the district and state coaching requirements, I learned that the 2022-23 7th grade coach had long-term aspirations for remaining as a coach in our district. She had run spring workouts at the middle school, coached a modified level team in the summer league, and as far as her credentials, she had numerous accolades as a college level player. So I thought, all right, well, what happened there? As it turns out, she and another interested coach did not hear back from the athletic director about securing coaching positions for the 2023-2024 school year. So they both ended up going to Burnt Hills and are now their JV and varsity girls basketball coaches. Undeterred by this revelation, I carried on, and 3 weeks later I was able to join the teams. It was a challenge to start nearly a month after the first tryout, but when the other coach is learning their voice as a first-year coach and there is no announcement from a school district official, it becomes more difficult, not just for the players, but for the parents who now see another person on the sideline during the games. I also learned in my first week that the other coach, modified coach, was actually going to be the coach for our JV team. But there was not enough players, so there was no JV basketball team this past season. I wondered what would have happened had there been a JV team, who would have been coaching modified prior to my involvement. So one of the suggestions I have here is, I'll just read it as I wrote it, a district-wide communication system for our school sports teams that is either required or strongly encouraged. Parent Square has been an improvement, but I don't believe it has sports team functionality. Each team or activity my kids have been a part of has used a different medium to communicate. Leaving it up to individual coaches has led to email, text, Google Classroom, Facebook, and various apps that have been utilized, sometimes resulted in limited or no contact with the parents. Getting back to the basketball season. Later on, there was a disciplinary issue with a player that ended up at the desk of the athletic director. He held a meeting about it with the other modified coach who was not present when the incident occurred. His directive was that it was best to sweep the issue under the rug because there were only 2 weeks left in the season. This resulted in no consequences for the disruptive behavior. This was deeply concerning for the player's character development. As a coach, you want to see players succeed at life in general, and if there is an exceptional athlete, you want to see them take on a leadership role and bring out the best in not only their current teammates, but future ones as well. An involved athletic director can help guide coaches and players when extenuating circumstances like this occur. The last week of the season, I wanted to move up our Friday practice by a couple hours because we were playing Saturday morning an hour away. When I went to change the time slot, I discovered that there was no formal process for gym reservations. Everything was being done ad hoc. During my attempt to change the practice time, I first called the athletic director's office and spoke to the assistant, who then referred me to the middle school main office, who then referred me back to the athletic director's office. From there, I was bounced again back to the middle school main office. Then I had to begin a process of contacting individual coaches who might or might not be expecting to use the gym at that time. The one remaining coach to contact was unavailable, which resulted in trying to contact him via email, and that took another day and a half because he was not in the office. So just another suggestion is improve the internal gym reservation process. On Thursday, February 29th, I sent a message to the athletic directory saying how I enjoyed my experience coaching and would happily return next season. I also inquired about spring season coaching opportunities at any level. On April 9th, 2 months after the conclusion of the modified season, the athletic director brought the 3 girls basketball coaches in to review how things went. When it was concluded that additional discussion would be needed to further develop the entire girls basketball program, I inquired about a follow-up meeting. I was told that wasn't possible because there were too many other winter sports teams that needed to be met with, leaving us to figure out the entire future of the program without his assistance. In June, summer workouts for varsity and modified players began. Anyone in forthcoming grades 7 to 12 was welcome. We practiced a couple times a week for 2 months. During that time, the program had another setback when we couldn't field enough players from the 6 different grade levels to fill one combined team in the summer league. Later in the summer, we held a girls' youth basketball camp. On the first day of the camp, the athletic director pulled the varsity coach into a 45-minute meeting while she was supposed to be with the campers whose parents paid money to attend. On August 6th, I received a text from the varsity coach indicating she would not be returning this upcoming season. The other coach and I were assured that our positions would be honored, just drawing the natural conclusion there that was backed up by the athletic director. On September 6th, kind of on another note, I learned directly from the athletic director that we had not resumed impact testing for concussions post-COVID. I'm not certain if that has resumed at this point. On September 18th, I inquired about a travel basketball notice that had been circulating at the middle school. The flyer specifically mentioned being supplemental to our school modified program. As I was the only modified coach remaining, because the other was moving up to JV, it was confusing that I didn't know anything about it. So I emailed the athletic director with my concerns. I never heard back. I sent a second message on September 26, as I needed to schedule an interest meeting for the upcoming season. I received a reply on September 27th that there was a new varsity basketball coach and that I should pause any plans for an interest meeting. The JV coach and I were never informed of even an interview taking place for that. On September 28th, I spoke to the new girls varsity basketball coach. He shared his vision for the program and how we needed to carry it out with coaches he already had a working relationship with. His vision actually sounds fantastic, very promising, so it's looking up. However, there was a prerequisite which must have been approved by the athletic director with no communication to any of the remaining coaches that they were not going to be a part of this upcoming season. As I stand here tonight, I've never heard anything directly from the athletic director. The minutes to previous Board of Education meetings show that the board did not approve the girls' varsity position until October 7th. The minutes from the October 28th BOE meeting show that the girls' modified coaching positions are open. On October 29th, I learned that the modified girls' field hockey season was lost due to that coach pulling out the 11th hour. Previous board-approved and licensed coaches, such as myself, were not canvassed about the opportunity to save the season for those kids. For the record, I would have done it. Thank you for your time.
Rhonda Neal, 136 Freemansbridge Road. I am present this evening to discuss the unacceptable situation within our athletic department. I firmly believe that reform is necessary and long overdue. I have had a long-standing connection with the district, being a mother of 4 children, all of who attended the school here, with my youngest currently being a senior and a member of the varsity lacrosse team. Additionally, I am the aunt of 3 Scotia graduates, 2 of whom were athletes. Over 25 plus years, I have gained extensive insight as to how the athletic department and the district run. I am also the grandmother of 2 future Scotia-Glenville students, which honestly concerns me and terrifies me, because without meaningful change, they may face the same issues and injustices experienced by my son and so many others. The behavior of the athletic director and multiple coaches is unacceptable and inexcusable. I find it profoundly disappointing and disturbing that no action has been taken and that you have continued to allow these individuals to remain in their positions. I stood at this podium on April 24th during last year's lacrosse season, where I addressed the board about my son being assaulted by one of his teammates and the way the incident was handled. I want to share my story with the new board members and remind everyone else how disgusted I was and still am. On April 18th, 2024, during an away game, my son was assaulted by his own teammate. My son received a concussion from this attack. I spoke to the athletic director, and he told me that after watching the video, it appeared that my son received the concussion by tripping over his own 2 feet. He spoke to me as if, honestly, I was an idiot. I watched the video the coach had sent me numerous times, even in slow motion. It was clear in the footage that my son did not do it himself. The kid swung a lacrosse stick at him, then charged him, knocking him down to the ground, and proceeded to punch him in the head multiple times. At that point, the kid received a 2-game suspension. I felt and still feel that it was a joke. I questioned why the punishment was different than if the incident had occurred at school. I asked the board at the meeting, and I understand you could not answer, but I also followed up in an email to the superintendent and every board member asking why the policies were different. I never got a response, and honestly, I'm still waiting. If the incident had happened at school, the kid who assaulted my son would have been suspended for at least 5 days. He would not have been allowed to attend any school functions during his suspension. Yet, the athletic policy that the coach was told to follow by the athletic director was that if you are suspended, you cannot participate in games, but you are expected to attend practice. So 2 days after this assault, my son had to sit on a bus to and from Troy and then on the sideline with the kid who did this to him. I felt that the student, who was at the time a team captain, should have been removed from the team. He assaulted my son, no question. I felt that he, if not removed, he should have at least been stripped of that captain title, which eventually did happen. However, he was then allowed to go and assist at the modified team. That in itself I find to be ridiculous. He embarrassed his team, his coaches, and community with his actions by attacking his own teammate. And it was handled like it was no big deal. I found out 2 hours before that board meeting that the kid and his family had filed an appeal to the suspension, which meant he would be able to return to play until that appeal took place. The only option my son was left with to receive any sort of justice would have been to go to Amsterdam and file a police report and press assault charges. However, he didn't do that because he said, and I quote, he didn't want to ruin the kid's life over a stupid mistake. My son, who was the victim, basically was punished more severely than the kid who assaulted him. He missed school, more practices and games due to the concussion. How was that fair? Bottom line, it wasn't. I feel that both the athletic director's actions of trying to twist the facts and blame my son and the blatant disregard by the coaches, who one of which said my son was partially to blame by showing frustration that the kid had allowed a goal to be scored, so disgusting, along with the consequences that the student received. This is not the way our athletic department should be run. The rules and standards for an incident of this magnitude should have not been any different than if it had occurred at school. Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. Thank you.
I'm speaking as, Kim Siciliano, 268 Swaggertown Road, Glenville, New York. I'm speaking as a mom of a JV player. Many of you know that I have 3 sons, my oldest being almost 23. So we have been through all of the sports in Scotia-Glenville in many different iterations. But I'd like to stay focused on the players. Let's talk about the players because that's why we're here. There were approximately 33 players on the team. They all gave in at least 200 hours of practice. I don't know if you're aware of that, which is 6,600 hours that these kids have put in, heart and soul, over approximately 60 days. Since August 19th, they've been working hard. And that's what I call integrity. Being part of a team even though you know you're not going to play because now you're combined. That's integrity. Coming home after 10 p.m., still having to do homework, washing your uniform, getting some dinner, that's integrity. All of these students deserve a varsity letter, and I hope they're getting it even if they stood on that sideline and really only saw, let's say, 5 minutes of play, which would be my son, who is only a 10th grader. But when asked if he wanted to quit, he said no. He said, I'm here for my team. So when I reached out asking about is there a season or no season for the JV team, who are the coaches? Scrimmages or real games? What's happening? I expected real communication in real time because that would have been integrity. So when my email was sent on September 9th asking this information, I did get a response. I can share with you, this is what I was told. First of all, I was told that you could not share anything about personnel matters, but that you could share that you are working through a plan to keep the team and our coaching staff moving forward. Once that is solidly in place, it will be shared. In the short run, Coach K, Coach S have stepped in to assist Coach T. That was on September 9th. So we waited. We waited because according to the email I received on September 9th, we would be getting information back. Nothing has been shared since, and I believe at last week's meeting, one of the parents stood up and said, I didn't know the JV team wasn't playing somewhere else. Yet my kid and many others stand on the sidelines supporting the upperclassmen, which is what they should do. They're part of the varsity team now, as far as I know, and their team at every single game. and still work hard and give it their all at practice, every practice. That's integrity. Additionally, I asked in my email that I sent, what is the school board process and etiquette? Coaches working on the field with students should be vetted and approved before the season begins. That's a huge recommendation because coaches create relationships with kids. So when they are no longer on the field, whether it's positive or negative or indifferent relationships, parents should be notified. I get it that you can't share personnel matters. I am a CEO at an agency. We don't share personnel matters, but we certainly do have a responsibility to communicate with the very parents, whether they are clients, in my case, or they are parents who are paying the salaries, the taxes to run this school district. There is a responsibility that comes from having integrity, which means that you do the right thing when people aren't watching. And so we trusted. We said our school district has integrity. And now, here we are, watching to see what you're going to do with the information that has been shared with you. So when that happened in the middle of a season, as kids were getting ready for their first game, I believe, against Mohan, or maybe right after the first game, we came off of this high of winning, there should have been some more communication, which was promised to me and I still wait for. So I did ask about that etiquette, that all coaches that are going to be coaching during seasons need to be approved before the season begins. And if a coach leaves in the middle of a season because they've been removed from the team, whether volunteer or paid, there is a responsibility on your part to make sure that the parents are aware of what's going on, not just the students, because how I found out was a group text that the team was on, that the coaches were talking to the kids about why they would no longer be back. My family has 36 years combined sports involvement in Scotia, and my husband and I have both coached football, soccer, basketball, and baseball. We know communication is key, even when it's tough and when it's difficult. Communication is key. In fact, that's when it matters most, when the crap hits the fan. That's integrity. In closing, thank you to the coaches who have stayed, stepped up, and supported the players. Thank you to the seniors who led the team. And thank you to the other kids who stuck with it, because if all of those JV players had left, there would be no team, because 23 kids will remain next year. And that is your varsity team next year, so you owe those 23 kids a lot too. We as a school district have to do better. As a sports program, we need to do better. Expectations are absolutely high. The stories already shared, disappointing at best, terrifying at their very worst. Parents, teachers, coaches, and the admin must turn these negatives into positives, because that's what Tartans do, right? We're Tartans. So what is the plan? How do we move forward? What happens when the chain of command falters? Guess what? We have to be Tartans. We have to rise above it and work together to get past this. And that is what I'm expecting of each and every one of you. Thank you for your time.
Christine Lemp, 1036 Tomahawk Trail. I still have the cough, so I apologize. Many of you in this room know me, and I hope know that I do not come forward just to hear myself speak or that someone says to me, "Good job." I do it because my children and all of their teammates mean the world to me. When my children are involved in something, we take it on as a family investment. We are all in. We don't take vacations during sports seasons. Our children do all the off-season work available. They're at every practice, and we are at every game or meet. In our family, there is no off-season. For those of you who don't know me, our family has been involved in Tartan sports on the youth and school level for over 13 years. My husband coached at the youth level for many sports, but mostly with football and lacrosse. Since our boys have been in high school and middle school, they've been involved in 5 different school sports, modified through varsity. I am very grateful that our family has been fortunate to not have any major issues with the coaches that our children have had. This weekend, I sat down and talked with both of them, and they both report positive experiences with all of their coaches. That yes, there have been some issues, and sometimes that coaches were tough with them, but in their mindset, that just made them work harder. My question tonight is about recruiting coaches for our teams. We have been involved in travel lacrosse for over 9 years. Therefore, we know many athletes, families, and coaches across Section 2 and beyond. I have reached out to several of our friends to learn how their district recruit coaches. One shared with me this weekend a post from their district's Facebook and Instagram pages that they were looking for a dynamic and transformational leader to become their next varsity girls lacrosse coach. I honestly did not know the process of how Scotia uses to recruit their coaches. I do know that in past seasons, my husband has been approached by parents to coach in our lacrosse program. Unfortunately, due to his job, he is unable to make that commitment. But regardless, my question is, why are parents doing the recruiting? I've also heard, since speaking out, from people that there have been individuals who have come forward to coach in Scotia-Glenville, but have only ended up not getting interviews. So they've gone on to local schools now to improve their programs. Why not our programs? Why not our kids? This also leads me back again to the first night I spoke when I asked, why are coaches being brought to the board for approval after a season starts? We have a lot of talented kids here in Scotia-Glenville. However, without having consistent coaches, there is limited opportunity for off-season work. Some sports, yes, have off-season. My son plays football all year round, and basketball. While personally, we have no issues with the current lacrosse coaches, my younger son is a better player because of the outside work that we have been fortunate to be able to provide for him, since there is very little off-season lacrosse work provided at Scotia-Glenville. Without coaches who are willing to do the extra work, we are either forcing our kids to look for outside opportunities that they may or not be able to have, or they leave the district. If we are asking all our student athletes to be all in, I think it needs to start at the top. Thank you.
Folks, we have time for one more person in the first round of hearing and privilege.
Is there anyone else that was? Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Wally Bisdell, 7 Somerset Lane, Scotia. So I guess where I want to start is what I'm sharing with you was also shared with our superintendent on July 20th in 2022. So the basis of what I'm sharing with you comes from that meeting. So just so you have a sense of my background, my oldest son graduated in 21, was a 3-sport athlete here. My youngest son graduated in 23, was a 2-sport athlete here, both captains, both top 10% in the class, both doing fine. My wife attended Scotia-Glenville, was a 2-sport athlete here. My mother-in-law retired as a teacher from here. I no longer have anybody in the school district in our family. So this is really for the people that are here. My background, I'm an assistant athletic director at Union College. I'm a sports psychologist who's consulted nationally and with a range of sports collegiately in high school. I've been brought into Burnt Hills to consult and do work with their athletic programs. I've done stuff in Guilderland. I also coached here for the hockey program for 3 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as a parent, as a community member, and as a coach here, and what I think the vision of good leadership in athletics includes. So I think that we should have somebody who is present at all of the events, organized, clear in their communication, available, providing constant feedback to coaches and families. Somebody who takes conflict head on and deals with it before it becomes a major issue. Somebody who listens to the parents, attends the events, sees what's going on, is aware of what's happening on the sidelines, on the fields, in the practices, in the games. Inspires a vision for the coaches, for the families, and lives it. In my experience, that's what good leadership in athletics looks like. In my time with both of my sons, playing multiple sports here, I never saw our leadership attend one of their events from warm-up to finish. Not once in any of those sports. I've been aware of parents complaining about coaches and coaching behaviors. Whether I agreed with those complaints or not, I would think that good leadership means you attend and you watch and you see for yourself. As a coach, I was not ever asked once for a practice plan, for my goals for the season, never given feedback, never given a review, not once did I have somebody attend a practice and say, I think you should adjust this or do this. Not once. Administratively, as a coach who's not a teacher, which I'm not in the district, understanding and navigating the administrative trainings can be challenging. I eventually went to the Guilderland AD to get information on what I needed to do, because in trying to get information here, it was not forthcoming. Coming out of COVID, my oldest son was a senior on the lacrosse team. In the fall, that was going to be a spring season. In the fall, we knew that we had a large number of seniors that said they weren't going to return. That information was brought to the administration. There was never any communication with those players, never any communication with their families, and in the spring, when our leader showed up to address the team, was shocked to see there was only 3 people there that were seniors. We knew it was coming in the fall. Before an award ceremony, with one of my sons winning an award, we got a phone call at home the day before saying to show up. In that phone call, my wife was also told that the administrator did not really like my philosophy on playing time. I would think that would be something you would say to me, not to my wife in a phone call. My son told me he was told the same information in the school. Not to me, to my son. You can determine whether the behaviors I'm describing are neglectful, incompetence, disinterest, whatever they might be. I know that coaches had asked for our administrator to come to games with concerns about parent behavior and player behavior, and nobody came. During COVID, when our hockey team was playing, the rule to compete was every team wears a mask. Every player on the ice wears a mask every game, every practice, the entire time. The team we coached had a player with a grandmother in the hospital, clinging to life, another coach that had a history of cancer and a heart attack, and we had a team that we had played once that refused to wear masks. We didn't know how serious this was or not, but our request to have our leader, our administrator, reach out to the administrator at the other school and ask that his team wear masks, we were told did not want to get involved, that it's up to the other school what they do. During COVID, we had a game, an away game, where parent behavior from both teams was poor enough that people were threatening to fight. The sheriff got called to attend that game and be present and calm things down. It was never, ever addressed. It was the last game of the season, and to my knowledge, never addressed. Athletics has the potential to do tremendous things. I make my living in athletics. It's where I spend my time. I see the value. But the qualities of leadership have to inspire, you have to communicate, you have to be present. It is not a 9-to-5 job, ever. And without presence and communication and relationships, it can't be done well. So it's up for you to decide if this is, where it falls, from the level of just not doing the job to negligent. That's up to you. What I can say in my experience in this line of work is the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will close the first hearing and privilege of the floor. Remind everyone we will have one towards the end of the meeting. And at this point, we will turn it over to our partners at SEI Design Group for a presentation on our electric vehicle infrastructure project. Welcome.
BOE Design Group. Thank you very much. I'm joined by Jeremy Kelsey, who's an associate with Engineered Solutions, who, those of you who've worked on the project so far, he's the brains behind the operation, really. And Jack Tario from our construction manager, and Ben Maslona from Fiscal Advisors. We're going to go through just an update to the EV infrastructure upgrade project over at the bus garage. I think first talked about this back in, I want to say it was July. So July 8th, yes, correct. So we're going to review again the scope of work that's proposed. We've got an updated budget based on some of our work in the last few months. The financial overview will be conducted by Ben, and then we're going to go through the project timeline and the proposed project schedule should it be approved by the voters. Obviously, there's been a lot back and forth in the last few months. One of the integral parts of this project moving forward is the removal of the Buchendal building. In the last few months, I've gone through a cost analysis of what it would take to bring the building back online, which I think you've heard is in the region of about $3.5 million, and that covers everything from elevators to make it ADA accessible, to bring on new mechanical systems, electrical systems, basically making the building not only safe for occupants but also bring it up to code. I did, as a offshoot, reach out to Wolf House and Building Movers. You've seen them; they do some of the large-scale building moving in the northeast. Part of their questions to see whether I was eligible to even move was A, is there a bridge nearby? Which of course there is one right on the property line, essentially over the railway track, and are there utility lines overhead? Which again there are on County Route 47. So we looked at going through all what it would take, but ultimately for this building, for the project to move forward, we need the square footage or the acreage that building currently sits on. As you can see from this sketch, this is an overview of the bus garage facility at 500 Sacandaga. There's a lot of parts that fall into place for this project to work. Notably, the first is actually just getting an upgraded electrical service to the property. That's across the road, across of County Road 47, next to the fire station. So first things first, obviously the removal of the Buchendal building. That would be replaced with in the red there, which is where the transformer would sit, and also the switchgear and the generator. That would be the point where we bring all the power onto the site necessary to charge all the buses. We also would run conduit over to the bus garage for where we tie into the main panel, also the building management system to monitor the power. This is slide number 2, which indicates all the conduits being run. The bottom right-hand corner of the site is the first installment of where we'd see the first lot of buses where we'd run power for the first lot of chargers. We're currently looking at about 2 level 2 chargers and 1 level 3 charger. The next stage is we actually have National Grid run the new primary feed over to the pad for the transformer. Then during the summer, we would then look to install all the necessary conduit for each of the charging stations that would follow sequentially to match that of the Transportation Director's bus replacement schedule. and then, yes, the level 3 chargers. And then the last section is the repaving of the entire lot with the heavy-duty asphalt to and striping, a new fence around the area, and overflow parking on the adjacent site to accommodate all the EV buses. Based on the projected costs of the project, the bulk of the works actually, as you can see, is in the electrical infrastructure. We've broken it out with the electrical service upgrade because part of that is covered by National Grid. And then, of course, the site work that needs to go along with that. We've included the incidental numbers in all these overall costs, so it's a total $2.6 million referendum. And I'm going to pass it over to Ben to review this part.
So our role in the process will be kind of twofold. The first is developing a financial plan and how do we end up paying for the project. And second of all is kind of maximizing the amount of aid coming back to the district in the form of two types of aid, both the building aid and transportation aid. So looking at this project, in a normal capital improvement project, you would have building aid only, which the district has an aid ratio of 76.8%. And in this project, you have about just over $1 million that's eligible for that. And that aid would come back to the district in a 15-year period, which is standard operating for building aid. And then there's a second component. The larger component of the project is EV focused. That type of improvement from the state level is going to be paid at the transportation aid ratio, which is a tad bit lower at 72.7%. And it also comes in over a 12-year period. So we've got to be cognizant of the fact that there's two different terms of aid flowing back to the district. The Buchendahl building would not receive building aid, and it's important to note that whether you did this as a removal of the building or whether you spent the $3 million to improve the building, it would receive no aid at all. It's not a student-occupied facility, so it's not going to generate any revenue back to the district. Some other key factors that are pretty unique to this type of project is that National Grid will give a 90% rebate on a cost of $148,500 for a transformer. So that's about $133,000 of funding of the $2.6 million, which would not have to be bonded or paid for over long term. There's also some charging stations, 5 at the tune of $55,000 apiece. So a total of another $275,000 that would not have to be long-term financed. We're not sure when that money would actually be received by the district. A lot of those programs are post-completion, so you have to pay it out of pocket, and that would come back. But you wouldn't have to long-term finance it, so that's a benefit, again, to the district. And then we're trying to develop a plan in which there would be no additional tax impact to the residents. And in order to accomplish that goal, about $550,000 of district funds would need to be allocated towards the project. And if we look at this as a little bit of a busy chart, but I want to just point out a couple of things. The biggest thing is the column that's highlighted in blue and red. That is the revenue or the aid coming back to the district. Transportation aid would stop at the red, so you'd get transportation and building aid in all the blue numbers, and then the final 3 years would just be building aid. I point that out first because the state does not care how you finance a project. The aid comes in based on what's called an assumed amortization payout schedule. So the aid comes in column 9, no matter if you pay cash, no matter if you bond it over 20 years or 5 years. That's the aid coming back. Most projects, and we've done this in the past with the district, you're going to finance the project over the same term. You want to match your revenue to your expense. The estimated expense to pay for the project is in column 8, indicated by the total debt service column. So really the difference between columns 8 and 9 is column 10. It's a negative number. What does that mean? That means you don't have to raise additional levy to pay for the project. The last slide that I have for the financial piece is just some key bullet points that I like to focus on. Number one is the total project cost, again, $2.6 million. Transfer to capital, that's the amount of the district funds which we expect will offset the debt service. We also have the National Grid amount, $133,000. NYSERDA, 275. And then again, I just highlight that the building aid ratio is 76.8%, applicable at about $1 million of costs. Transportation aid, 72%, the additional 1.3 million. And then the tax increase, again, that's our key, right? That's where we want, that's where we started, that's where we finish, so no additional tax effort.
Thanks. So based on, obviously tonight, November 4th, one of the things that comes up is that we have to kind of address seeker with every capital project. We'll pull together a seeker application. Right now, it's currently projected as an unlisted, which means that it would go as a coordinated review while we go into SHPO for the Buchendale building. That would open up a 30-day review period, which we right now are targeting for, I think, the beginning of 2025. That allows us to be able to kind of review with SHPO in the meantime, get the seeker letters out to the interested agencies, and then close it around about February 17th, make a determination at your board meeting on Feb 24th, and then we would then look for the board to pass a resolution for the referendum in and around March 24th. And then that would then lead into, the 45 days before the vote, where we would do kind of like presentations, if required, to the public and any mailers that need to go out to basically inform the public of what's on the ballot. The plan right now is to have the vote as a proposition as part of your budget vote in May 20th, and obviously it would save the district money by doing the vote at the same time. The proposed project schedule, right now, actually this top date actually is March to June 2025. That's based on an assumption that we could try and get a jump on some of the design, because I know there's a desire to try and get this into SED as fast as possible, with obviously through all the necessary kind of like surveys and analysis of the site. We do a third-party review, that's been recently reinstated by SED, which allows for a fast-track review process. That would go through. Right now it's a 45-day review period by a third party, and then it goes to the state for the financial review by the fiscal associate in there. We would target bidding in the fall of 2025, with the look to begin construction, in this case demolition, at the end of the year. And then from talking to a construction manager, the likelihood is that we probably could combine all of the construction work at the bus garage actually into that summer of 2026, to minimize the disruption to the transportation operations there, because obviously you've got all the buses that have to be relocated, and we don't want to be tearing up the parking lot when it's still in heavy use. The target would be August of 2026 for the installation of 5 chargers. There's a potential for 2 of the level 2s and 1 of the level 3, which would actually allow for 5 or chargers for 5 buses, but that's going to, as I say, work in conjunction with the bus replacement schedule, which is the next slide. This is projected out from working with your transportation director. Right now, in order to meet the needs of the district's EV purchasing all the way up to 2035, there's currently 45 buses listed there, the first of which would arrive in 2026. So we're working back from that kind of September of 26 date to try and make sure that everything is in place, so that when the first EV buses arrive, they can be plugged in and charged up, ready for use. And then you'll notice that, as I pointed out during the kind of slides of all the different stages, we're not installing chargers, all 45, or in this case 20 level 2s and 3 level 3 chargers all in one go, because we're going to match the district's spending with the technology available, because we don't know that if we buy all the chargers now, that they'll be as efficient as the ones that we would purchase for the 2033 or 2034 buses. So I think the idea is that you would match your bus purchasing at the same time you're matching your charger purchasing. We're just putting in all the infrastructure ahead of time, so that we're planning future proofing by putting in all the conduit ahead and putting in the handholds so that you can pull power at a later date without any disruption to the operations at the bus garage. And that is it.
Is based on our current obsolescence model, correct? So
I believe so. That came from the one that Clara shared with me from Transpar. I think that was. I believe so.
It becomes part of our bus profit every year. Instead of getting unleaded, we're getting EVs.
but if we'd be replacing the existing budget,
Yes.
this would be following our same, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Anyone on the board have a question?
I do.
Yes, sir.
So looking at the timeline for construction, I know it's 2 years away, or a year and a half, whatever it is. The July to August 2026 parking lot reconstruction, is that including the sublot? We're putting for an employee parking there?
It would actually, it would actually start mid-June, and we would phase out the buses to another site, whether it's the high school or middle school for storage, and allow enough buses that would need for the fuel runs for the summer school.
Okay.
And basically, in that time frame, do all the work. From
that-
mid-June through the end of August to put in all the conduit, all the infrastructure we need underground, and repave the new parking lot with the heavy-duty pavement for the heavier electric buses that we're getting.
Yeah. The overflow that you're mentioning would be part of that same time frame, but it would obviously be subject to an agreement between the district and the softball field.
Well, the alternate parking is at the lower end with a walkway up to the bus parking for district employee parking and for drivers if there's an overflow.
That's my second question now. Would they be affected? Would the softball league and the football league be affected? Because obviously it's a very narrow, small entrance going down. Would they be affected for any field use?
No,
anytime?
we would gravel a section of the lot and 20, 30 cars maybe, as needed. But consider the time of operations, 6 a.m. to 2:30, 3 o'clock, who's using the fields? I mean,
Okay.
most of those
I mean,
fields are...
construction time. During the construction I'm talking about. During the construction, during the...
They have no effect to those fields at all.
Okay.
The actual work down there is very minimal compared to everything else, and would probably be something we do at the tail end.
But I mean, obviously, after the fact, when everything's said and done, they can use it when
Oh.
the parking lot's empty, when the employees are all gone, whatever, right?
The great use is you're using it for our off hours and their off hours. So, basically share it and get the most out of it.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize if you answered this today or at any other time. Will there be any disruption to the traffic on Route 147 and Spring Road during this construction? Or
No.
No.
No, just National Grid. They park wherever they want, okay? But the other part, no.
I mean, ultimately, the new primary feed, Jeremy can talk to this better than I can, but the primary feed that comes across, the utility pole right now sits on the fire station side, so they will have to excavate it.
Well, actually, it's going to be going overhead.
Oh, sorry.
And we'll have a
That was my
riser-
next question.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell
it's
from
going to
here.
be
Okay.
overhead, and it'll be a riser pole located on your side next to your transformer, and we'll rise up to hit that. So there will actually be no underground work required for that.
Okay, thank you.
It says, and Drew, this may be more something for you to answer, it says that we're going to be transferring $550,000 towards this. Where is that coming from?
Good question. So we have about $800,000 in a repair reserve, which was dedicated to repair the parking lot and resurface it. But now we're going to tear it up and everything else. We're going to basically take that money for board action out of the repair reserve, move it to the general fund, and then move it to the capital fund for the project.
So it's money we already have in our possession.
Yes, just shifting it around.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
I have one more question. When you say about the mailers going out, what information do the mailers have?
What we've done in the past, certainly if you recall with the capital project we're working on right now, we typically pulled together some key images and just an overview, much the same as we saw in this presentation, but it's more just a kind of either a newsletter or a leaflet that gets either posted on the website or gets sent out to voters. It's usually just, it's more kind of like short bullet points of the scope that's part of the project and the cost. And obviously some information on when and where the vote is.
Oh, one more, sorry. The buses is a question for you, Drew. But can we use our buses at other facilities, meaning other schools when we go to travel sports or with Glens Falls, whatever? Can the chargers be used, their chargers be used on our buses?
Well, I think.
That's a tough question.
Kim, coming back from the board convention, there's now a way to take a charger with you on those trips, new technology.
Yeah, I mean, when we went last year, they had no idea what it was going to do. That was Thomas. Now,
Conference, they said there was a test further that they can take, so we could take it with you. So say bus A, B, and C are traveling to this sporting event. We're not sure that there's going to be the right charger for our bus to get back. This can go onto the bus, and then they can use the converter and then bring it back. So it's like a little extra piece. So we have a safety. It might be something we have to put on our bus and buy some.
better make sure we have it at all times then.
The biggest question we don't have the answer for, what are the chargers going to be in 3 years? And are the buses going to be as heavy? Are they going to be needing that many batteries to carry that charge? The way we've pretty much discussed it and planned it is, as we increase the bus inventory, we're going to buy ready chargers for those. So you were saying 2033. We don't know if they'll charge the 2026 buses. We don't know. That's something we don't know yet. But with portable chargers, yes, in the future.
Thank you.
And I know that this EV bus purchasing is definitely a daunting list to look at. We're following what the state is requiring us to do in the timing of when we're buying what buses when.
2027, you have to start, every new bus has to be purchased EV. By 2035, you have to be fully EV. It's my understanding right now.
So based on your experience, Drew, this is the best way to get to that 2035 number in a tough situation that we're dealt with.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're changing all the buses through before, our buses, we would bid off to recoup some of the funds from purchasing a bus. How is that going to work with the buses and our diesel buses? Like, will we be able to recoup some of those with the old buses?
I don't know if resale or auctionable.
Demo the buses.
We'll continue to trade in our diesel and let it go auction them and get proceeds from that. But I don't know on the EVs, it's too new. If anybody's turned in EV, it's getting.
So let's still get auction off the old ones.
Yes.
Towards the EVs.
Or trading in as part of the EV purchase.
So that's great.
I'm going to channel Pam a little bit with this question. Is there a little something that we could say from the Buchendall building, maybe to kind of commemorate the fact that we're not forgetting it, even though unfortunately we have to remove it in order to do what's best for the school district?
Yeah, I think ultimately the State Historic Preservation Office is going to require that we document this building extensively. I think the intent, at least from our standpoint, is that we're going to go through, I'd like to use the Matterport drone to try and scan some of the inside of the building. I'd also, with the district's permission or the board's permission, I'd kind of open it up potentially to Albany architectural, it's called architectural salvage, but they come in and they can remove architectural elements of the building for reuse elsewhere or for salvaging, which is an option as well, if the district has no use for them, I'm saying. Because of course there's a wooden stair in there, there's the kind of the transom,
There's beautiful woodwork in there.
In the main entranceway, there's some beautiful woodwork. Elsewhere, I would question the kind of the salvage or even in salvaging it, because a lot of it is, as I say, there's a lot of water damage from years of neglect. So it's really just that main entranceway that we'd look to try and either find new life for somewhere else on the district, or, as I say, open it up to a potential salvage team to come in and get it.
Great. I will definitely leave that to the experts, so just that would be nice if we had a little something just to commemorate it.
Yep.
one more question. Last one.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So I know it's still early, the buses, we know it's still early, right? Maybe there's something I want to see from our office, from district office, that maybe a safety plan for the buses to evacuation I'm getting at. Because those batteries I saw, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, if it's on the front of the wheel, it's almost to the back. The whole bus is a battery underneath. And usually right now, the buses right now, they're all in the front, everything's there, all the components are in front. God forbid a fire happens, you need a lithium battery, they can catch fire and burn pretty fast. I'd like to see like an evacuation plan maybe, or some safety plan in the future. If something God forbid happens to a bus, students are inside, or anybody, God forbid. So I'd like to see that in the future maybe.
That's good.
I see somebody, what was you maybe? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
From what I've read, most of the fires occur during charging.
Okay.
So it's not when they're in use, it's when they're, because of the voltage drops and boosts, that one or two articles I've read about them. But then again, every year they're even safer.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, you know, they put this out so that it's out there for knowledge, but what was the original one? There was the first year or 2 years, they had to be 8 or 10 feet apart, and now you're able to park right next to one another.
So good thing we're next to the fire department then?
That's
if they know how to put it out.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Nothing else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Leave this on or turn it off?
This time I'll turn it over to Superintendent Forbes.
So 3 items I'd like to make the board aware of this evening, update you on, so to speak. I had shared with you that we're looking for a new student information system, and to that end, Mr. Arquette had put together multiple committees which reviewed our current system, Power School, but also took a look at 3 other student information systems. That group is just finishing up their work. I think we are going to go with a new student information system. That's not to say that one day we shut down Power School and the next day we start with the new system. There'll be a detailed rollout and there will be overlap between those 2 systems. But I do know that several people who have sat on the committee are quite excited about the idea that we will have a system that is actually differently powerful than the one we have at this point, and will give people opportunities to look at information in new ways. So we're quite excited about that. So that work is wrapping up. We're going to be using our Parent Square platform, which offers a second layer, if you will, called Student Square. And we are going to start using that as our primary means of communicating with students who are in athletics, who are in clubs, who are in classrooms, as opposed to what currently happens or may happen where folks are using individual cell phones or personal emails to communicate. Parents and students would receive the same communications on the Student Square platform. And it will allow us to have a record of communications and also a single platform upon which people can communicate with our students. So we're looking forward to that. Megan Johnson, our IT director, is working on piloting Student Square with a few of our staff members right now. But we are hopeful that we may start using it, or at least trial using it for winter sports. And again, we can use it with drama club, with the choirs, with anything that we do here that groups students. So we are very excited about that. And finally, I want to recognize the varsity cheer team, which became Section 2 Class B champions on Saturday at Albany High School, and will be moving on to states. So congratulations to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, reports, updates, legislative. Kim?
Yes, there's a few pieces of news. I apologize, I took notes on my phone, so that's why I'm looking at it. First, I wanted to advise that state legislation went into effect this past Friday that increases the fines for individuals who decide to pass school buses. For your first offense, it's a fine of $250 to $400. For your second offense within 3 years, the fine is $600 to $750. And your third or more times of this offense within 3 years, it's a fine of $1,500. So hopefully, I figured I'd share it here so the news gets out. I do see that sometimes we still have individuals who like to pass our school buses, that hopefully the monetary values will slow them down. Also, we were supposed to, there had been news that we were going to be getting the unveiling of the graduation requirements was supposed to come out today by the New York State Education Department. I haven't seen it come out yet, though. Susan, you didn't see it either come out today, so hopefully we'll be hearing about that soon and see how that'll affect our district. Also, last week, the New York State Education Department and the New York State Mental Health Agency sent out a letter to all of our districts recommending made two, I think, very important recommendations with respect to mental health. They have assistance in establishing a school-based mental health clinic for each district. And there's supposed to be potentially some grant money towards that. I would hope that we can maybe try for that, Drew. I don't know if that's, I'll let you and Susan figure out the details of that, but I thought that was very exciting. And also to provide mental health first aid to teachers and students, training for them in how to deal with such issues. So I thought that those were two very exciting pieces of news, especially as the board has as one of our goals, trying to find new resources for mental health, among other things. So I think we need to keep an eye out for those two things. I think to try to have them for the district would be a great thing. So that's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you. PTA?
Right now, the next PTA meeting's in November 20th, and I spoke to Chad earlier today, speaking about Founders Day. I guess the flyer's coming out tomorrow to announce the day, I believe a new date, or the same day, right? Yep. Same date, the flyer should be out tomorrow, and I heard at middle school, they're bringing back Teen Town. I'm not familiar with it, so you guys are happy about it, so this is great. It's got an event on the 15th from 6 to 8 for all the middle school kids, so sounds exciting.
That's exciting. Mr. Arquette smiling, remembers those days.
I guess so.
I remember those too.
Excellent, thank you. Nothing on the audit committee. We just said the audits 2 meetings ago passed the minutes, so nothing at this point in time. Policy committee?
Right now, we have started through the 5,000s. We've sent in our updates on policies and revisions. We will be working on a couple. There's some that are going to be due by December 22nd that need to be revised. So I will meet with Pam and Susan and go over those.
Beautiful. Board of Education goals, as Kim just mentioned, the mental health, our Board of Education policies. And then as far as our forums go, I know Emily asked us today, we're looking at dates to try to get most people here if possible, with different things between schools and athletics and club presentations. So we should be able to, between now and the next meeting, the board be able to chat about that and then report that we will be able to have our first one relatively soon. And then budget, I know we're getting into our first fiscal report here momentarily. Actually, that's next. So let's move right on to that. All right. If I can get a motion, please, to accept the first fiscal projection for 24-25.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the first fiscal projection for 2024-2025.
Thank you, sir. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions for Drew? Or Drew, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Typically at this time of the year, I present the first look of 4. I do 4 of these. So this one reflects 4 months of actual activity and 8 months of projected activity. A year ago at this time, we were looking at a surplus of $3.1 million, which was predicated a lot on some favorable revenue at that time. Interest income was very favorable due to the unforeseen decade-high interest rates and compared to our budget. Right now, as you read in the memo that I did in the update, that we're looking at about $1.4 million at this time, which is a $1.7 million reduction looking forward. This is primarily driven by 2 main factors. Out-of-district tuition for special needs students. We have 9 more students than I budgeted. I typically carry 3 more than we have, and we've had 9 more. And so that number is real. And for the first time, I think in my 20 years of doing this, I'm over budget at this time in that area, so I have to cover it. And interest income, we budgeted much more realistically to what we knew what the rates were going to be, so we're on budget, but revenue is really tight right now. We do await the first state aid runs in about a couple weeks. So right now, we're behind where we were a year ago. And as you know, we're in good position on our balance sheet with reserves and fund balance, but that'll go quickly if we don't make this up. So anything that's happening now, we can absorb. We'll make it through the year, but it'll rear its ugly head during the budget process and as our base will go up. Are there any questions on what I wrote or presented? Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. No questions? All right, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed or abstained? So moved. Can I get a motion, please, to accept the June 24 extra classroom activity report?
I'll make a motion to accept the June 2024 extra classroom activity report as submitted.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Can I get a motion, please, to approve the contract for the 24-25 capital improvement projects?
I'll motion to approve the contract for the 2024-2025 capital improvement project as stated.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Do you have anything further on this?
I have a question, Drew. Can you just, I know this, in looking at the contract, it says it has to do with SEI project number 23-4370. Can you just remind us what that project entails?
That's the $12.5 million one that was approved last May, and we're looking to start construction this June.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. If I get a motion, please, to request to establish the Glendale Homework Club.
I'd like to make a motion to request to establish the Glendale Homework Club.
If you want a second.
I'll second it. Give it to
Thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. If we get a motion for resolutions 11, 12, and 13, please.
I'll move to accept the Mary Moore and Raymond Memorial Scholarship, the gift and donation from Lowe's Heroes Project, and the gift and donation of a 16-inch Sterling Roth replica Antonius Stradivarius viola, all with thanks.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. So, do you have any questions or comments? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstained? So moved. I get a motion on communications and report of superintendent, please.
I'll motion to move communications A through C, staffing 1 through 14, and placement of children with disabilities.
Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone have any comments or questions on any of that?
Have we received clearance from all of these individuals as of yet? Through the fingerprinting?
Only if, the only ones that are clear is if they're in the asterisks.
do the same protocols that we've been doing with respect to those? All right. Thank you.
No other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstain? So moved. On to routine business. If I get a motion and a second, please, to approve the minutes of the October 28th meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes for the regular meeting on October 28th, 2004.
Thank you, sir. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstain? So moved. Moving on to other business. Does anyone have any other business we'd like to talk about?
I had a question for Kimberly, jumping back to the legislative portion. With the school bus, at any point did they discuss like a final consequence of just taking a driver's license? Or was it just?
No, it's just, the legislation was just to raise the fines.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Chad, the reason is talking to law enforcement, they can't specifically identify the driver, but they can identify the car.
Okay.
So they send it to the person who has the registration on that car. They can't give you a points on your license or anything.
Same thing like a red light camera?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question.
I just wanted to mention two things. One, tonight the high school is having their undergraduate achievement awards ceremony, so I just wanted to congratulate all our recipients of the different awards. And then also this weekend, our Scotia-Glenville High School Drama Club did a production. I'm going to completely butcher it, but it was Abridged William Shakespeare. It was actually very funny. I went and saw it Saturday afternoon. I thought they did a great job. It was obvious they worked hard on it, so I just wanted to give a shout out to them as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. No other business? All right. At this time, we open up the second hearing of privilege of the floor. Again, we just ask everyone to please sit to the 5 minutes board policy. State your name and address, please.
My name is Lynn Bauer Shapiro, and my address is 849 Mara Lane in Glenville, New York. And I'm just speaking today about the use of our schools as a polling location. It is my understanding that one of the district's priorities is student safety. And I think we expend a great deal of energy keeping the students safe during the regular school day. And then it seems like on polling day, election day, that all gets tossed out the window and anyone can just walk in our building. And in this day and age, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense to use schools as polling locations anymore if the students are going to be in the building. I'm aware that the Scotia-Glenville Teachers Union requested that it be a professional development day so that the students would not be in the building, and they were denied. I am also aware that other local school districts that use schools as polling places are not having students in their building. And I am pleased to know that there will be police presence at the middle school tomorrow. But I guess the real question is that if you feel there is enough of a safety concern that there needs to be police presence, then why are the students in the building in the first place? So I strongly urge you to consider when Election Day comes around in the future that you adjust the schedule and that students are not placed in a situation where they could become, in harm's way. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Center, 800 Riverside Ave in Scotia. Circling back to the earlier comments, the lack of communication and transparency is what caused myself and a few other parents to comment initially, like a month or so ago, at some earlier meetings. You've since clarified that you don't reply at meetings, and so we appreciate that clarity. You also since clarified that you won't reply at all if it's about a specific individual or it's something else you otherwise can't, comment on publicly. However, both in my email and at the meeting, I felt like I asked some very generic questions that are about policy and procedure and not related to a particular person or a specific event. But like the woman who spoke before about the, JV team, I received an email and I'm still waiting for that actual response. People have asked me, why are we bothering? Why are we bothering to come and say anything? Because nothing's going to change. But each meeting, I feel like more and more people are coming and more people are coming forward. And it seems clear to me from the various comments that people may have come forward in some way, shape, or form before, but never really felt like they were heard. And it seems like to me that this situation may be different because we are all speaking at the same time. And there's a similar theme with the various problems. And, as the parent of 2 students that have come through Scotia, I really hope that this does not also extend to other areas of the district that maybe I'm just not aware of. Maybe other people are making, complaints and voicing, or just even worse, keeping those complaints to themselves because they feel like nothing is going to change and nothing's going to matter because, for whatever reason. So I'm really hoping that, like the previous gentleman who spoke, that the districts show that they can show as much integrity and being all in that we are expecting and getting from the students of our district. Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Steve Sweeney from Scotia. I was trying to take a few notes while I was here. I wasn't planning on actually speaking tonight. But for all of you who don't know, the lady who spoke earlier was referring to my son when she was talking about the kid that assaulted her child. It was actually reversed. I mean, her son's a 19-year-old junior. My son was 17 at the time, so it was actually an adult beating on a child and bullying him, and my son defending himself. But the way that incident, regards to the facts, the way that incident was handled was horrible. That night we got a phone call from the coach. I have no problem with my son being punished whatsoever. He got a phone call from the coach saying he was suspended for a game. My son said, okay, I understand. I shouldn't have done what I did. Took his suspension. Didn't go to the next game whatsoever. Still had to maintain going to practices. Right before the second game, the coach pulled him aside and said, nope, you're suspended for 2 games. He said, okay. Again, he said, okay, I don't have a problem with that. Again, I shouldn't have did what I did for 2 games. Then he got called into the athletic director's office, I think a day or 2 later. Again, this was last year, so it's hard for me to remember. He watched the video with the athletic director. The athletic director asked him to explain himself. He explained himself. He handled it. He took control of it and responsibility for his actions, and then proceeded to get suspended for 2 more days. The issue that I have with that whole situation is there was nothing in the policy book whatsoever to punish somebody at that time. I've looked this year and I still can't find anything referring to that. If this had happened and he had just punched a teammate, not a teammate, if he had punched someone on the other team, which has happened tons of times in football games and lacrosse games, Section 2's policy is you're suspended. You get thrown out of that game, you're suspended the next game. We laugh and joke that if he had hit someone on the other team, he would have got a 1-game suspension. He wouldn't have got a 4-game suspension. There was no policy. I mean, if he had done something wrong in school and he had gotten a detention for it, served that detention, I don't see how the next day they can say, well, we don't think that detention was long enough, you need to serve another detention or keep it going. If they had just said originally you're suspended 4 games or you're done for the season, that would have been fine. But to keep doing that with a child's emotions is not fair to either family, theirs or my family. Which brings me to another point. I had a meeting afterward during this with the superintendent. I had asked several times what punishments are going to be for the other child as well for hitting my son earlier in that game. I was numerously told by her and the coaches that there's privacy laws in effect, and we can't discuss other students with anybody, ever. During the meeting I had done a FOIA request on the incident of all your guys' communication with it, with the athletic director's communication, the coaches' communications, and in that, there's an email from our superintendent reaching out to the athletic director, telling her to please reach out to the parent to talk about what Caleb's punishment is. His parents' information is on there, and that is completely unacceptable. To be told that we have privacy issues up here, we can't name names, right? But yet we can have our superintendent direct an athletic director and her staff to reach out to another family. When I confronted her, she said, "Don't you want me to be looking out for the best interest of the kid?" So she thinks it's justifiable in this situation. That is completely wrong, and the whole incident was handled poorly. If you guys would like, I recorded that whole meeting with Ms. Schwartz. I'll be more than happy to provide it to you, because during that same meeting, she also provided information out of the blue in regards to another incident at the high school, not involving me whatsoever, actually involving a member of the board's daughter, which I have no clue why that was brought up. I'm done with that topic. Another thing I'd like to talk about is why are we having coaches?
1 minute, Mr. Sweeney.
All right, thanks, Al. Why are we having coaches on the sideline or instructing our children before they're board approved? Everybody's bringing up a big deal. I know I saw some of you board members at games, some of the people here, and I brought that up. We have coaches literally on the sideline instructing our youth, and they're not even board approved. Everybody's making a big deal over that voluntary varsity assistant. He shouldn't have even been talking to our children. He should have nothing to do with our children. He was never board approved. We didn't lose anybody because he was never approved. You can't lose something you never had. And I just want to say that. I mean, we can't have coaches that are not board approved. That's your guys' job to board approve them. And the last thing, again, I agree with everybody else with the communication. My son's taking the athletic placement test tomorrow afternoon. I know it's at 3 o'clock, and that's all I know. I don't know where. I know who's instructing it. I know nothing. There's nothing on the website. I haven't received an email with instructions as far as where to be, just instructions on how to fill out the forms. And the coach really didn't know that much about it either. So I would just like to thank you guys for that, and keep up the good work.
Else that would like to address the board at this time, we will close the second hearing and privilege of the floor. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.